Chicago, a Tuesday morning, November, rain. A 56-year-old man stands in his kitchen, staring at a note. Her handwriting, the one he's known for 30 years. On shopping lists, on birthday cards, on the list on the fridge. He'd seen that handwriting 1,000 times without ever truly looking at it. And now, he was looking at it. For the first time. 4 sentences. I can't do this anymore. I've waited too long. I'm sorry. Take care of yourself. No signature. The keys on the dresser. The closet half empty. 30 years, 3 kids, a house, and a note. 4 sentences. No blame, no argument, no ultimatum. Just 4 sentences and a silence that said more than 30 years of conversation. He called her. No answer. 3 messages. 5, 10, 20. Each one more urgent than the last. Where are you? What happened? Let's talk, please. 3 days later, a reply. A single sentence. Please respect my decision. 5 words, and a world falling apart. He told his friends it came out of nowhere. Everything was normal. She never said anything. And his friends nodded and said, women are just unpredictable. Some said maybe there's someone else. Some said she'll come back. Just wait. And he believed them. Because the alternative was too painful. The alternative was this. She had said it 100 times. In 100 different ways. Through sighs. Through glances. Through the way she stopped talking about her day. Through the invitations he declined. Through the book on her nightstand that she read every evening because he was no longer a partner in conversation. Through 100 small moments that meant nothing on their own, but said everything together. And he never listened. Not once. Jung once said something that fits perfectly here. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakes. This man had spent 30 years looking outside, at his career, at the house, at the children, at everything that could be measured. And he had never looked inside, not into himself, and not into her. I'm the author of the channel, The Hidden Mind, and this video is the hardest one this week, because it's not about techniques, not about wishes. It's about loss, about 5 reasons why women leave, the real reasons. Before we begin, one thing must be said up front. This video is not an indictment. In some parts, it might read as if the man is always to blame. That is not true, and anyone who interprets it that way has missed the point. Sometimes she leaves even though he did everything right. Sometimes she leaves because she has changed and he no longer fits into her life. Sometimes she leaves for reasons that have nothing to do with him, because she wants to catch up on something late in life, because she met someone else, because she wants to be alone. And sometimes he leaves. That happens too, more often than statistics might suggest. The statistics say that about 70% of divorces are initiated by women. But the statistics do not say who gave up internally first. And usually, both have given up, just at different times. What follows are 5 patterns that repeat in the majority of breakups, not as an assignment of blame, but as a mechanism. And in each of these patterns, both partners play a part. It is not 50-50. It is different in every relationship, but it is never 100-0. Never. That must be clear before we start. Women do not leave because of a single event, not because of one fight, not because of one bad night, not because of a forgotten date, not even because of an affair. All of those can be a trigger, but they are never the reason. The reason is always a process. A long, quiet, invisible process that sometimes takes years, sometimes decades. This process has phases, and each phase has signals. And in every phase, there is a window where things could be changed. Most men miss every single one of these windows. Not out of malice, not out of indifference, out of habit. And habit is the most invisible of all enemies. Because it feels like normality, like just the way things are, like 30 years of marriage, like daily life, like life itself. And here lies the most fundamental mistake a man can make in a relationship. No fighting does not mean everything is okay. No fighting often means someone has stopped fighting, and when someone stops fighting, that is not peace. It is the beginning of the end. That sounds dramatic, but it is not. It is quiet. It is slow. And that is precisely why it is so dangerous, because no one notices. Because it looks like normality, like a mature relationship, like two people who no longer need to argue. In reality, they have not stopped fighting because everything is resolved. They have stopped because they have stopped caring. And not caring is worse than being angry. Not caring is worse than being hurt. Not caring is the end. Not the beginning of the end itself. Only no one notices because it happens so quietly. No fighting does not mean everything is okay. No fighting often means that someone has stopped fighting. And when a woman stops fighting, it is not peace. It is the beginning of the end. This sounds dramatic, but it is not. It is quiet. It is slow. And that is exactly why it is so dangerous. Because nobody notices it. Because it looks like normality, like a mature relationship, like two people who no longer have to argue because they have resolved everything. In reality, they have resolved nothing. They have stopped trying. The Gottman Institute has followed thousands of couples for over 3 decades and coined a term for this. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling. When all 4 have arrived in a relationship, the probability of separation is over 90%. These are not opinions. This is data. And the data shows something surprising. The most dangerous horseman is not contempt, although it is the most destructive. Contempt is visible. You can hear it in the tone of voice, in the eye rolling, in the cynicism. You can name it. The most dangerous is stonewalling, the silence, the withdrawal, the emotional absence, and it is almost never recognized. Because silence is invisible, because withdrawal happens quietly, and because most people mistake silence for peace. When a woman stops making demands, it is not a sign of contentment. It is a sign that she has given up the fight. When a man stops defending himself, it is not a sign of maturity. It is a sign that he has become indifferent to the relationship. When both stop arguing, it looks like harmony from the outside. From the inside, it is an empty room. 2 people existing next to each other, not with each other, side by side, like roommates with a marriage certificate. Freud would have added something uncomfortable here. He would have said that the repetition compulsion does not only apply to ignored signals, it also applies to entire relationships. People who have failed in one relationship tend to repeat the same patterns in the next, not because they are foolish, but because the unconscious seeks what is familiar, even if the familiar is painful. The man who did not pay attention in his first marriage will not pay attention in his second, unless he understands the mechanism, and understands it not just intellectually, but so deeply that he breaks the pattern. That is hard, but it is possible, and it is the only reason this video exists. Not to accuse, but to explain, so that next time can be different. In reality, this silence is not peace, it is a surrender. And from the outside, surrenders look calm, even peaceful. No more accusations, no more tears, no more demands. Everything seems to be in order. And beneath the surface, everything is already over. The first reason, he stopped seeing her. We have talked about this in the last 4 videos. The first wish she never speaks is to be seen. And the first reason she leaves is its opposite. She was not seen. For years. That sounds simple, but it is not. Because not being seen is a process, not an event. Nobody wakes up in the morning and decides, today I will stop seeing my partner. It happens gradually, imperceptibly, like a picture that fades. Not because the colors are changing, but because the eyes get used to it. It works like this. In the beginning, you see the other person. Truly, with curiosity, with wonder. You notice every new haircut, every tired look, every real and every fake smile. Then comes daily life. The kids, the mortgage, the career, the parent-teacher meetings, the taxes, the broken faucet, and the focus shifts from the partner to the tasks, from the woman to the function, from the human being to the role. And at some point, the woman has become invisible. Not physically, she is standing right there, cooking, organizing, functioning. But as a person, as an individual with her own fears, her own longings, her own doubts, she has disappeared from his field of vision. There is an image for this. In the beginning, the partner is a painting you stand in front of, in awe. Every detail is new. Then the painting hangs on the wall, every day. And eventually,
you walk past it without looking, not because it has become ugly, but because the brain has decided there is nothing new to see. But the painting is changing every day. New colors, new shadows, new cracks. And whoever does not look misses everything, until the wall is empty. Then something happens that most men do not see, and most women cannot name. She grieves, not loudly, not dramatically, not with accusations. Inside, quietly, for the relationship that once was, for the man who once saw her, for the attention that has vanished, for the feeling that someone knows her, truly knows her, not her function, her. This grief, if it lasts long enough, transforms, first into hope. Let's try one more time. Send one more signal. Start one more conversation. Then, when that hope is disappointed, it turns into resignation. It is not going to change. He is who he is. That is just how it is. And from resignation, it eventually becomes indifference. And indifference is the last step before leaving. Not anger. Anger would be a sign of investment. Not sadness. Sadness would be a sign of loss. Indifference. The moment she no longer cares, whether he comes home or not, whether he listens to her or not, whether he touches her or not, it does not matter. And once indifference has set in, the decision has already been made. The rest is logistics, suitcases, keys, a note. And the honest addition to this, she also stopped seeing him. She also failed to notice his changes, his fatigue, the pressure he was under at work, his quiet fear of aging, his loneliness that he would never admit. Both of them became blind to each other. The difference is that she noticed it earlier, that she tried to do something about it for longer, and at some point she gave up. And he did not notice that she had given up, because he was not looking, not at her, not at himself, not at anything. The second reason, he ignored the signals. Every woman who leaves has sent signals beforehand, always, without exception. In 30 years of observing relationships, there is not a single breakup where there were no signs beforehand. But the signals do not look the way men expect them to. Men expect plain text, loud signals, fights, ultimatums. Tell me what you want or I am leaving. Those would be signals the male system understands. Most women send signals differently. A sigh when he comes home and goes straight to the screen without saying hello. A hesitation before she says goodnight, as if she wanted to say something else but changes her mind. The way she stops talking about her day because she senses that he is nodding but not listening. The suggestion to go out for dinner, which he dismisses with a maybe next week and immediately forgets. The moment she stops touching him when they sit next to each other. The hand that used to rest on his knee now rests in her own lap. The moment she starts falling asleep alone. First once a week, then twice, then every night. These are not small things. They are data points, meaningless when viewed in isolation. But together, they form a map of alienation. Most men cannot read this map, not out of stupidity, but because their system speaks a different language. The male system expects plain text. She sends subtext. He expects linear communication, problem, solution, done. She sends interconnected signals, a sigh here, a withdrawal there, a canceled evening here, harmless on their own, but together an emergency call. And because his system is built for plain text, he does not hear the emergency call. Not because he is not listening, but because he is tuned to the wrong frequency. Each of these signals is a window, a moment where a single attentive sentence, a touch, a sign of interest could change everything. And every time the window is ignored, it closes a little more.
until it is locked from the inside, and then no amount of knocking will help.
Freud called this the repetition compulsion. She sends a signal, he ignores it. She sends a stronger one, he rationalizes it away. She is just moody, it will pass. That is just her way. It is menopause. Every rationalization is a defense mechanism, not against her, against the uncomfortable truth that something is wrong, that something needs to change, that comfort is not the same as contentment. And because changing is more exhausting than ignoring, the unconscious chooses to ignore, every time, automatically, like a reflex, until she stops sending signals. And that is the moment most men interpret as peace. Finally, she has stopped nagging. Finally, there is quiet. In reality, that quiet is the end of hope. But here too, the other side of the ledger. He also sends signals that she ignores. His way of sitting in silence in the evening is a signal. His retreat into his hobbies is a signal. His shortness of breath that he never mentions. His sleep problems. His increasing drinking. He is sending signals too. And she is ignoring them too. The difference is what is being ignored. She ignores his exhaustion. He ignores her loneliness. Both have consequences. And both could have gone differently. The third reason, he hid. Not physically, emotionally. Behind work, behind sports, behind hobbies, behind the screen. Behind any activity that prevents one from having to feel, from having to talk, from having to be present. There are men who are busy 12 hours a day and not reachable for a single minute. Physically present, emotionally unavailable. This is not workaholism. It is a defense mechanism, and it works. Against intimacy, against vulnerability, against anything that could hurt. And at the same time, against everything that could be good. Jung called this the overdeveloped persona. The mask you have worn for so long that you forget you are wearing it. The strong man, the provider, the rock, the man who has everything under control, who never complains. Who never shows he is afraid of retirement, of getting old, of the question of whether this is all there is, of the silence that comes when the children are out of the house and only two people are left who have become strangers to each other. The problem is that the persona does not just deceive the world, it also deceives the wearer. A man who wears the mask for 30 years forgets who he is without it. He no longer knows what he feels. He no longer knows what he needs. He no longer knows what touches him. And his wife no longer knows either, because she has not seen the person behind the mask for years. A few years ago, a story. A 61-year-old man, 28 years of marriage, separated. His wife said one sentence at the divorce proceedings that he has never forgotten. "I lived with a stranger for 30 years. Not a bad person, a stranger. He was polite, reliable, paid for everything, was never loud, but he was never there. And I waited 30 years for him to show himself, and he never did." That is the price of the persona. You protect yourself from rejection and lose the connection. You build a wall against the pain and do not realize you are also locking out love. The tragic thing is that many men only take off the mask after the separation. Only when the pain is great enough. Only when they are sitting alone in an apartment and crying for the first time in decades. Not in front of anyone, alone, in the dark. And in that moment, when the persona collapses, the person behind it becomes visible. For the first time in 30 years, the real man, the vulnerable one, the grieving one, the one who is afraid, the one who feels lonely, the one who does not know what to do next. And the bitter irony is that this very person, this real, raw, unprotected man, is the man his wife was looking for all along. The one she suspected was behind the mask for 30 years, and the one she never got to see. Because he never showed himself. Because he was afraid. Of her reaction, of his own judgment, of the question of whether the man behind the mask was still someone who could be loved. A woman can live with a man who makes mistakes. Most women can even live with a man who makes big mistakes.
What no woman can endure in the long run is a man who is not there, who is physically present but emotionally unavailable, who sits in the same room but lives in a different world, who answers when spoken to but never says anything on his own, never asks how she is, never shares what is on his mind, never shows that anything is going on inside him. This is the quiet form of disappearance, and it is more destructive than fighting, because fighting is at least contact, at least energy, at least a sign that someone cares about something. Silence is the opposite. It signals that nothing is important enough to fight for anymore. And chronic silence over months, over years, is a slow death.
Not of the relationship, of the connection. And without a connection, a relationship is just a contract that someone eventually terminates. And here too, the other side. She also has a persona. She also hides behind the role of the perfect mother, the woman who holds everything together, who functions, who never complains. She also does not show who she really is. Both are hiding behind different masks for different reasons, with the same result. Two strangers in the same house, and neither knows who the other is anymore, because both stopped showing themselves a long time ago. The fourth reason, the partnership turned into a parent-child dynamic. This sounds harsh, and it hits a nerve most men do not want to feel. It starts with small things. She reminds him of the doctor's appointment, buys his socks, manages his calendar, decides what is for dinner because he says, "Whatever, you choose," puts away his clothes, reminds him of his own mother's birthday.
And he lets it happen. Not consciously. It happens gradually, over years, until a dynamic is established that feels familiar to both of them. To him, because he knows it from home. To her, because she has learned to be the one who takes care of things. Freud would call this regression, the unconscious tendency to revert to childlike patterns in a secure relationship, to be taken care of, to give up responsibility for everyday life. Not because you cannot do it, but because someone else is doing it. And because it feels so natural that you do not notice it happening. In the beginning, it is a division of labor. She cooks, he does repairs. She organizes, he earns. Sensible, efficient. And at some point, the balance shifts. She organizes everything. He decides nothing anymore. She reminds him of everything. He forgets everything. And the unconscious seeks the path of least resistance, always, automatically, without anyone deciding it. Until one day, there are two people, one of whom is the mother and the other is the child. And no one knows how it happened. The problem is not the help. Help in a partnership is normal. The problem begins when help becomes a role, when care becomes a duty, and duty becomes exhaustion. And exhaustion becomes the silent, deadly glare when he asks for the fifth time where his keys are. Or when he stands in front of the empty refrigerator and calls out, "Are we out of milk?" As if the milk were her responsibility, as if the refrigerator were her territory, as if he were a guest in his own house. These moments are not harmless. Every single one sends a message. The message is, "I am not responsible. I am here to be taken care of." And each of these messages erodes respect, millimeter by millimeter, until there is nothing left. There is a specific moment when this dynamic becomes visible, when the children leave home. Before that, the parent-child dynamic was masked. There were real children to take care of, and caring for the partner was part of a larger system. But when the children are gone and only two people are left, the truth becomes visible. She is still taking care of someone, but not children anymore. Him. And he still allows it. And suddenly, they look at each other and realize what their partnership has become. Not a partnership, a care facility. And the caregiver has had enough. But the counter-argument is particularly important here, because this dynamic is not created one-sidedly. He allows it, yes, but she participates. She takes control of the household, of the calendar, of the organization, and not always just because she has to. Sometimes because she is better at it, or wants to do it better. or because control over daily life gives her a power she does not have in other areas of the relationship. The mother role provides control, and giving up control is just as hard for her as it is for him to grow up. Both benefit in the short term. He gets convenience, she gets control, and in the long term, both pay the price. He loses her respect, she loses his desire, and in the end, both lose the relationship. A woman who has become her partner's mother has stopped seeing him as a man. Because you do not desire a son, you provide for him, you take care of him, but you do not desire him. And when the children are out of the house and nothing is left but two people, one of whom is the adult and the other the child, then the relationship cannot be saved. Not because there is no love, but because there is no tension. And without tension, a relationship is just an administrative arrangement, nothing more. The solution sounds simple. Grow up. In the relationship, manage your own appointments, do your own laundry, call your own parents. It sounds trivial. It is not. Because each of these actions is a message. I am not a child. I am a partner. Partners meet at eye level, not at the level of a parent looking down on their child. And whoever understands this and acts accordingly has diffused the fourth reason. Not solved, diffused. Because dynamics that have been ingrained over decades do not disappear overnight, but they can shift. Piece by piece, sock by sock, appointment by appointment. And now the final reason, the deepest one, and the one where most men feel the most resistance. Because it touches on what they take for granted. The fifth and deepest reason, believing that her staying was a given. The assumption that the relationship is a state, something you achieve once and then it remains. Like a house, it stands. You do not have to rebuild it every day. Maybe a new coat of paint. Maybe repair the roof sometimes, but the foundation is solid, and the foundation is not going anywhere. This is how most men think about their relationship. They built it, bought the ring, organized the wedding, built the house, had the children, paid off the mortgage. Done. Relationship completed. Like a project that has been finished. Next item on the list. Relationships are not houses, and they are not projects. They are gardens. And gardens that are not tended run wild. Not tomorrow, not next week, over months, years. The weeds grow millimeter by millimeter. And because you only see millimeters each day, you see nothing. Only when you look up after a year do you see a thicket where roses once grew. And your partner is no longer standing there because she has been weeding alone for years, planting alone for years, watering alone for years. And at some point, she understood that she will always be doing it alone. That he does not see the garden, that he does not even know there is a garden, because he is sitting in the house, thinking the house is all that matters. Jung called this the inflation of the ego, the overestimation of one's own position, the belief that one is so central that the other person cannot leave. Where would she go? What would she do alone? This belief is an illusion, and it is dangerous, because it prevents the man from making an effort. Why try when she is going to stay anyway? And so a paradox arises. The more secure he feels, the less he does. The less he does, the more she withdraws. The more she withdraws, the quieter it gets. And he interprets the quiet as peace, until the note is on the table and the counter-argument. She also believed he would stay. She also rested on that security, on the certainty that he was not going anywhere, because he never left, because he is not the type. Because he is too comfortable to look for something new. That is also a form of taking things for granted. And because of that, she also did not say things she should have said. The plain text she should have spoken, the boundaries she should have set. Instead of hoping he would understand on his own, she could have said, "This cannot go on. I need this and this. And if it does not change, I am leaving." That would have been plain text. He would have understood that, but she did not do it, because she was also afraid of the conflict, of the response, of the possibility that he might say, "Then go," or worse, that he would nod and still change nothing. both built on security instead of honesty. And security without honesty is a house without a foundation. It looks stable until it collapses, and then they both stand in the rubble, wondering how it could have happened, even though the cracks had been visible for years, to both of them, if only they had looked. The assumption that someone will stay is not trust, it is complacency. People do not stay because they are there. People stay because they have a reason to stay every day. And when the reason disappears, the person disappears. Not overnight, drop by drop, until the glass is empty. There is a bitter truth that many divorced men only understand years later. The woman did not stop loving and then leave. The order is different. She loved and hoped and waited and sent signals for years, and then, when nothing helped, when every window was closed and all hope had died, she stopped loving, and only then did she leave. Love does not die while packing a suitcase. Love dies months or years before, the moment hope dies. And hope dies quietly, without warning, like a lock turning, quietly, finally. And here too, the final counter-argument. Sometimes his love dies first. Sometimes he is the one who leaves internally long before she notices. Sometimes he is the one who stops hoping. Sometimes he is the one who escapes into work, not because he wants to advance his career, but because he feels nothing at home anymore. The narrative that the woman is always the suffering one and the man the blind one is a simplification. The reality is more complicated. Sometimes he suffers just as much, just differently, more quietly, more invisibly. And sometimes he leaves without anyone understanding why, because he also sent signals that no one read. This is how this mechanism works. 5 patterns. 5 reasons that repeat in thousands of breakups. Not seeing, ignoring signals, hiding, turning the relationship into a parent-child dynamic, and believing that staying is a given. None of these is an accusation against an individual. Each is a pattern in which both are involved, in different roles, to different degrees, but always both. That is the most important insight. Not him alone, not her alone, both. In a dance that neither chose, but both have been dancing for years. Without music, without joy, out of habit. The good news, and there is good news in this video, even though it is the hardest of the week, is this. Patterns can be changed. Not easily, not painlessly, not overnight, but they can be changed. Gottman showed that couples who recognize the 4 horsemen and consciously counteract them can save their relationship. Even if 3 of the 4 horsemen are already present, as long as the 4th, stonewalling, has not become chronic. As long as someone is still fighting, as long as someone is still angry. Because anger, and this is paradoxical, is better than indifference. Anger means that someone still cares. The question is, at what stage are your own patterns? There is a window. Sometimes it is wide open, sometimes it is ajar, and sometimes it is closed, forever. And then nothing helps. No conversation, no vacation, no promise. Then it is over. And the only question that remains is, what will I do differently next time? What did I not see? Where was I blind? And am I willing to keep my eyes open next time? Or will I choose comfort again? Because comfort is easier than attention. And because most people choose easier. Not because they are bad, but because no one showed them that there is another way. This video shows it. What you do with it is your own decision. And that decision is not made tomorrow. It is made today, now, in this very moment, not later. But if the window is still open, and the fact that someone is watching this video suggests that it might be, then now is the moment. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when work calms down, not when the kids are out of the house. There is no better time. There is only now. Look, read the signals that have been sent for months. Take off the mask that has been on for decades. Stop taking staying for granted and start tending the garden. Not because you have to, but because what grows there is the only thing that really matters in the end, not the house. Not the bank account, not the career, not the title on your business card. The person who wakes up next to you, or no longer wakes up next to you, because they left, quietly, without warning, and because you were not looking. What does that mean in concrete terms? It means doing something different tonight. Not everything, one thing. Ask how she is doing, and really listen to the answer, not the automatic fine that you have both been exchanging for years like a worthless coin. The real answer, the one that might lie in a hesitation, or in a look you have not noticed for months, or put your hand on her shoulder when you leave for work, without intention, without any ulterior motive, just as a signal that someone is there, that someone is looking. Or say a sentence you have not said in years, not "I love you." That has become too easy, too automatic. Something more honest, something like, "I feel like I am missing something, and I want to understand what it is."
That one sentence, if it is meant honestly, can move more than 10 years of silence. Not because it is magic, but because it does the one thing most men never do. It admits that something is wrong, and it does not ask for a solution. It asks for connection. And connection is the only thing that keeps the garden alive. This is not a judgment, it is a warning, and warnings are meant to be heard. Before the note is on the kitchen table, before the silence wins, before the garden runs wild, and before the question of why she left becomes the only question that remains. Because that question is the loneliest question a man can ask himself. Not because it has no answer, but because the answer is almost always the same. Because I was not looking, and because she stopped hoping that I ever would. And tomorrow, we will get more practical. Tomorrow, we will talk about 7 things men over 45 should stop doing in bed immediately. Things that have been part of the routine for years. That are considered normal, and that reinforce the very patterns we have talked about in the last 5 videos. Not seeing, autopilot, performance instead of authenticity, speed without attention. Tomorrow will be concrete, point by point. No theory, just practice. It will be more uncomfortable than anything this week, because it is no longer about understanding mechanisms. It is about changing habits. And changing habits is the hardest thing a person can do, but also the only thing that is worthwhile. See you tomorrow.